You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Hey, welcome to Serious Growth Podcast. I'm your host, in case you didn't know that. The theme today for me is going to be, you don't know what you don't know. You know, I'm being triggered today doing this podcast by a comment that I got from a gentleman, you know, and one of the things that happens to me that I sometimes take for granted is that I don't really know and think that I make that big of a difference with the information that I give to people. I think that sometimes, not because I don't think it's good information and it's valuable, it's because I think I hear myself talking about this stuff all the time. And I think sometimes I forget. Let's just put it that way. But I had a post the other day. Every once in a while, I take my shirt off, you know, just because I'm a healthy narcissist. And it seems like part of my being now, what I want to do is, like I did 40 years ago, is I constantly want to teach, motivate people to become a better version of themselves. You know, that was my stated goal 40 years ago. I've been in this industry now for that long, believe it or not. And I'm not saying that for you, I'm saying it more for me, some of the stuff that's happened to me. But it's always been about that. And I think I forget sometimes, just because of some of the comments that people make. It brings me back to a center, I think. And I had this guy say that, you know, I won't go into the whole comment, but he's an older gentleman like myself. He's an older gentleman, and I think I'm going to have him on my show. But he's a former, he's competed, and about a month ago, he had a devastating heart attack. And what I was talking about in my post was, when I said, you don't know what you don't know, I was referring to, and when I say you don't know what you don't know, I don't mean like you necessarily. I mean you, me, us, we all don't know what we don't know. Maybe it's a better way to put that. But anyway, that was the video. And it was referring to something that happened to me. You know, I've often said that life is a giant test. Life is constantly testing us, one way or the other. And it's something that goes on. I mean, I refer and recall back to when it all started happening for me. And it's like I started getting adversity or being tested that I can remember when I was 5 years of age, when my parents got divorced. That was adversity for me because of what went on. I mean, I'm sure that some of you might be able to relate to what I'm saying, but you know, sometimes I got to go back and remember things like this and how it relates to this gentleman that commented to me. You know, he basically told me, he said, you know, I had to hear, it was lucky that I saw your podcast when you were saying that you don't know how capable your body is of overcoming, of, you know, either you fight or you don't fight. Of course, my stance has always been to fight everything. I'm a fighter. And I was lucky that I became an athlete at a very young age, 8 years of age, to be honest. And I've been involved in athletics one way or the other since I was 8 years old. So a lot of my strength comes from that. I draw back to that, you know, and I think it's important that we all have some kind of a foundation like that so we can draw back, because, you know, life is a journey. And again, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen to us. And it's hard to imagine every single scenario, because I've talked before, you know, how to make an anxiety or something that causes you to stay up all night is to identify, make it something that you face up to on a regular basis, and then become smaller. But that's just, you know, a way to process and handle the daily tests of life. So this guy says to me on this comment, he goes, I had to hear this because I was at a point in my life. Again, he's had a heart attack about a month ago that he felt like he was just ready to give up.
All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about our product.
Do you want a bone-crushing grip? Good, because you're gonna get one with the amazing new TRS gripper. It's a progressive grip builder with longer handles and a special ergonomic design that's like a dozen hand grippers in one. Start off easy and work your way up to quickly build your grip strength from wet noodle to pulverizing. The package includes a video from the world-famous strength coach, Dr. Russ Horine, the man who worked with Leo Costa to help bring you big beyond belief in the Bulgarian Power Burst. Dr. Horine shows you a simple and easy to follow workout plan that takes just minutes a day right from in front of your TV set if you want. So click on the link below and let's get started building you a stronger, firmer, bone-crushing grip.
And that triggered me. It made me start thinking about all this stuff that's gone on in my life. I mean, I could relate so much to this gentleman, and it's so humbling to hear people say that. He said you basically, I'm a lifesaver. Imagine that. I never thought the stuff that I was gonna, the information was gonna give here, as it relates to training and nutrition, my goodness, would have that kind of impact on people's lives. It's hard to humble me, I think, because I'm full of myself, to be honest with you. But something like that just really stops me in my tracks, and it kind of chokes me up to think that I had that impact on somebody. And I'm so glad that he wrote that, and I'm so glad that happened. I mean, that's pretty cool. As a healthy narcissist, to have somebody say that to you, it's almost like you're doing something bigger than yourself. Anyway, so he's the reason I'm talking today, because I know most of us, maybe all of us at some point, are in that boat where you feel like you can't go on. I can tell you that one thing that triggers me right now that was huge, and again, one of the main tests in my life up to this point was when I had 3 strokes in 3 weeks that paralyzed me. Holy crap. You want to talk about a wake-up call? You want to talk about a gut check? And we all have them. I'm certainly not making my situation here any worse than anybody else has gone through. It's not that. It's just I'm trying to make a point that it's going to, in some way, happen to all of us. And if we think about it too much, we'll shrivel up into a fetal position, because this is some scary stuff. I mean, if I would have thought when I was younger that I was going to have these strokes that paralyzed me, are you kidding me? How can you imagine that? How can you imagine this shit that happens to you is going to happen to you? It's unthinkable. So how do you prepare for that? Well, for me, it was about becoming an athlete at 8 years of age. I didn't know that at that age that I was already learning and starting to learn that was my foundation in learning how to deal with life down the road. How do you know? How can you know that when you're that age? I was just having fun playing sports. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize how important sports was going to be, to the point where sports has saved my life. And I've talked about it before with bodybuilding. Bodybuilding has saved my life more than one time. And one could say because of the strokes and what I was doing at the time. I'm not going to get into that. I think some of you know the story. It may have had something, my bodybuilding may have had something with my demise, so to speak. So I'm there lying in bed 10 years ago, lying in bed. This is another one of the tests of my life. This is a test so far. I would say this is the biggest test that I've had to this point. I'm only qualifying that because you never know. I'm laying in bed and I don't know where my arm and leg is. I don't know where I'm at. Can you imagine how scary that is? It's a weird feeling. We don't realize how connected we are to our body, our mind and our body. Why should we? You know, it's something that's automatic. We just start taking these things for granted. And I got to tell you something. When something like this happens to you, as it did with me, it gives you a whole different perspective. It woke me up in a way that I can't even explain. It woke me up in a way that changed my emotional state forever. And it's very difficult. When I say that, it's very difficult for me because, you know, I was kind of raised by a dad who they made us tough guys. We grew up tough. And to be a person that after something like this happened, an event like this, that rocks your world, it rocks your world. I've never been the same. And I'm saying this for those people that are out there. It's okay if you're not the same. You know, in my post, I said, you don't know what you don't know, but it's about making adjustments in your life to continue to make the progress that you want. See, I think that's the secret right there. And in some ways, I've talked about the strokes were a mixed blessing, and it's beyond me to think that. But it gave me clarity in a way. It changed me emotionally in a better way. I'm able to express my emotions in a way that I never did that shit. I was that person that locked everything down. Bury it deep as you can. I was that person. That was my way of handling my parents' divorce when I was 5. How the hell did I know? How should I know how to handle adversity like that? My parents, I love them both, and there's no harm or foul. They did the best as they could. But, you know, they could have handled that in a lot better way, I thought. And yet I went through a divorce as well. Crazy. But the strokes changed me. I cry a lot more. I'm thinking, is this for real? Really? I mean, it got to the point where I thought it was pathetic. I had to deal with that emotion. I wasn't okay with it. See, it suited me. It's like, so you get to parts of your life and it's like, holy shit, how am I supposed to handle this? I don't know what to do. But I got to tell you something. When I started just owning up to the fact that I was brand new. I was impaired. I'm in bed. I don't know where the hell I'm at, part of my body, but I was a brand new person. I had to deal with that. And that's when I started learning how powerful and how much we have as human beings. We've got a lot to give, not only to people around us, but mainly I think where it starts is to yourself. You got a lot to give to yourself. So I guess what I'm really saying is that those of you that are, you know, dealing with adversity or whatever the case may be, fix you first. You know, sometimes, and I was that person, sometimes you self-medicate because you don't want to deal with it. But when you get down to that point where I was after those strokes, that was pretty deep, man. I was you talk about a crossroad. It was a shit or go blind moment. What's I going to do? You know, I reflected back, you know, it's like all these tools that we can use. Pay attention to what's happened to you in your past. You're going to find tools there, some learning lessons that you can take with you. Because I've done that personally. I mean, maybe you won't do that, but I'm just telling you what happened with me. Maybe that sharing this helps you to look back. It's hard to look back sometimes because it's painful. Your past is painful in many ways. I think it probably happens to all of us. But there are clues there to help you keep moving forward. You know, so when I got to that point where I didn't know where I was in bed, I thought, okay, I'm at this point. What are you going to do, Leo? I'm asking myself that question. And I think it's important that we all ask ourselves that question. I've talked about looking in the mirror because there is the problem in the mirror. There's also the solution in that mirror. That's a good thing. None of this stuff is really bad. You know, you can look at it as a negative if you want to, but I don't think it really is. And so I looked back and I said, okay, what are you going to do now? What the hell are you going to do now? This is someone who myself, I've been active all my life. Goodness sake, I'm a trainer telling people how to get in shape. And here I am like this. How can I ever go back to training clients? How embarrassing is that? How humiliating is that? That's how I felt. It was dark. I needed that moment. I needed to be able to face up to that moment. Just kind of like I did in a different way when I first walked into Gold's Gym, and I walked in and I saw all those behemoths, and my first response was, oh, hell no. I can't look like those guys, all muscly. I mean, I wanted to. I had my tail between my legs. I scampered out of there and went back home. It's kind of the same, but I responded in the same way. Once I got back home and I had a little bit of time where I was a little bit objective, because I think it's important that we get ourselves in an objective spot, which is difficult. That's when I started saying, wait a minute, hold on just a moment. This is when my background of being an athlete, athleticism, or athletics, what it teaches you is all about adversity and success. It's all about that, which is life. So I went back to that. I said, wait a minute, I'm an athlete. I can do this. I had to first talk myself into that fact. I can do this. And I had to talk myself into, not where I was just saying it to make myself better, but it was reaching down to say, look, when I said that I can overcome this now in my strokes, that's a heavy deal. That is a serious ass commitment that you have to make. How is that different from committing to anything that you're trying to do? In other words, I had to be all in. So that was the beginning of a brand new me. Brand new me. I'm going to tell you something. I didn't even recognize who I was in some ways. I had to get used to my brand new me. My brand new, emotional, crying little, but what I learned about being able to express that emotion is that it actually made me stronger. And what I learned about that, and this maybe can help with the gentleman who reached out to me about, he was giving up at that heart attack. It's devastating when your body lets you down like that. And I'm not saying, I'm not blaming your body, but I'm just saying, because maybe he had something to do with it. I don't know. But it's like, that's how you feel. You feel betrayed by your own body. Can you imagine? That's a huge letdown. So to recover from that, when you say, I can do this, you better know that it's going to take everything you got. Our coaches used to say it a lot of times, when things aren't going well, you're benched, we're losing, you got to dig down deep. You got to have that moment where you're like having that, it's a heart to heart talk. There's no screwing around, because there's no way that you can change the situation that you're in unless you get to that moment. That's not such a negative thing based on my experience, because you know what? I said, I'm going to come back. I'll do what it takes. I'll just make the adjustment, do it a different way. Because me personally, and I know there are a lot of people out there that are former athletes, and like this guy who has the heart attack. I mean, I can tell I just got the sense that he's an athlete. And to think that you can't do some of the things that you like to do. If I can't go to the gym, let me speak candidly. If I can't go to the gym and compete against myself and put on muscle, because that's who I am now for the last, since I'm age of 27, I got into bodybuilding. I'm that person. You take that away from me, and I sure as hell will die. I saw this happen to my grandpa. This is a silly example. He retired from his love, his work. It was time for him. I mean, he had every right to retire. But after he retired, he died pretty damn soon because he didn't have anything to look forward to. See, his life was that in the dairy business that he was in, that was who he was. Like I am that guy I'm a meathead bodybuilder at the core. I can't you can't take me out of the gym. But I did have to realize that I can't do it the same way. So here's my dilemma. Maybe for the gentleman who had the heart attack, who's a former bodybuilder, we have to be who we are, but we can. I mean, I'm proving it to myself. And like I said, I like to first do it myself before I pass this information on to anybody else. I've always been like that. As a trainer, I was like that. I wanted to make sure that I did it myself because I wanted to know, I wanted to feel everything that my client potentially was going to feel. I wanted to know that. So I'm telling you, you know, I'm that person at the age of 67 that is still in the gym. I'm still competing against myself. You know, I'm not going to get up on stage anymore. I don't want to. I don't need to. But I have to be competitive. That's who I am, vibrant. I have to come back and do this thing or I can't exist. I'm telling you, I know how I am. If I can't do this on my terms to some degree, I'm going to flatline. They're taking the heart out of me. So I guess what I want to leave with, you know, with this a podcast or this today is you never, ever give up. You never settle for that you can't do what you want to do again to some degree, but be smart about that. You know, find out why this happened. Like it with strokes, you know, it's kind of like there's a risk factors, things like that, you know, find out the reasons why, as painful as they're going to be. Find out things like what's my recovery, my chances of recovery. Because so people that have strokes, it's horrible. Less than 10% of people make an almost 100% recovery. Less than 10% of people make an almost 100% recovery. You know what that means? A lot of people end up in the hands of other people caring for them. How frightening is that? It can be done. I want to lead the way for some of you out there. You know, maybe it's not that you want to go in and compete yourself against yourself in the gym and put on muscle and feel as good as I'm feeling, not knowing that tomorrow might be a whole different ballgame. I think in some ways, to be honest with you, I mean, because I have to keep a bit in my mouth to check myself. But sometimes I think I'm dancing with death a little bit. But aren't we all? Aren't we? Do you really know what's going to happen to you when you walk across the street or you step in your car? Sometimes we don't think about that. I'm more aware of my situation because of what happened to me. I see, in some ways, I think that is a good thing. It made me more aware. It made me say, okay, I need to do this because if I don't, I'm not going to be a happy camper. But I'm very aware. It's a calculated risk. So my message to you today is, in my opinion, this is my opinion, take the calculated risk if it's going to make you more alive. I'm not telling you go do that, but in my opinion, I think that's what you should do. Based on how I'm feeling and what it's done for me, I'm just getting warmed up, as Al Pacino said in a movie. I'm just getting warmed up. How awesome is that to feel that way, to get up every day, especially at someone who's 67? For fuck's sake, 67 used to be old. And I'm telling you, it's a weird dynamic, but I don't feel that way. I'm not going to lay down. I don't want you out there to lay down when you're in the middle of adversity. It's okay to get knocked on your ass. Take it. There's a difference between, you know, getting knocked down and not getting back up. You're going to get knocked down. It's going to happen again and again. That's going to happen to me. Maybe it's an injury. Maybe it's something. Life is a giant test. So go test yourself. Do it in the right way. Make yourself alive. It'll free you. Free yourself from yourself. Till next time, go get some serious growth.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.